Every black woman has or had that friend that don't take ish from anybody, and people called her mad or angry. The one that would trick the teacher in front of the class and read them for filth, and of course got sent to the principal's office, but not because they was wrong, but because they was loud about being right. The one that younger siblings would threaten to call if people wouldn't leave them alone at school, and people left them alone at school because they knew about that sister. And let me tell you, the one who rock rough and stuff with her afro puff rage, that lady of rage type energy. Gen X, y'all know what I'm talking about. We all had that friend in our friend group, or maybe that friend was you. Listen, this video is not about managing your anger or telling you to calm down or telling you to be more respectable or more demure. This video is about understanding Black women's rage as one of the most powerful tools for liberation and community organizing that we have, and why this system depends on our compliance and has spent decades trying to take rage away from us. Stick with me. We talking about where the angry Black woman stereotype came from and what it was built to suppress, the documented evidence, the receipts from school, work, legal system, relationships, all the places we encounter, and what it does to our bodies when rage has nowhere to go. And then we'll talk about three ancestral practices about moving rage through you and what it looks like when Black women stop apologizing for our rage and start organizing with it. Before we get started, though, I am Barbara Ohuninifa. I am a griot, an author, an ancestral strategist, and the founder of Beautiful Powerful Love, which is a storytelling movement for the remembering, the healing, and the liberation of Black women at a crossroads. Subscribe, ring the bell, because we're going in. 1928, there was a radio show about two black friends called Amos and Andy. Had a mostly white cast, by the way, but it introduced a character which was a black woman named Sapphire Stevens. And this character was loud, she was domineering, she was sharp tongued, just perpetually dissatisfied and just unpleasant to be around and just an unpleasant person. She was written by two white men who were, by the way, performing the main characters in blackface, even though it was radio. But Sapphire was played by an actual black woman. Now, to be clear, Sapphire was not a portrait of a real black woman. She was a caricature designed to mock black women who expressed opinions, set limits, or refused to perform the European standard of the feminine. That show ran for decades and was one of the most listened to programs in American history. Therefore, one of the most deeply influential programs running in the heart of American culture. The name Sapphire became a slur, like a shorthand requiring no evidence and no argument. You just had to say it, and a black woman's whole legitimate testimony was neutralized. But that's the origin, not an observation, not a truth, a caricature invented and broadcast into millions of U.S. homes until it became assumed a cultural fact. Mass media doing what it was designed to do, television programs programming the minds of the American public. Let that sink in. Sociologist Patricia Hill Collins and Black feminist thought identified Sapphire as one of what she called controlling images, stereotypes that were constructed to regulate Black women's behavior, justify our mistreatment, and undermine our authority. Melissa Harris Perry's Sister Citizen documents how these stereotypes function as a system of shame that we're supposed to walk around with ongoingly and navigate daily in every room we enter. In my own memoir, From Fat, Black, and Unlovable to Beautiful, Powerful Love, I talk about how stereotypes like Sapphire impacted my life as a young girl growing up in Chicago. And in retrospect, even my analysis then was self critical at the time. Child, let me tell you, growth and clarity is a beautiful thing. But the Sapphire, the angry Black woman, is the one assigned specifically to neutralize a Black woman's authority. Not just in elections or policy rooms, but in every space where a Black woman's voice could hold power. Her community, her church, her workplace, the school where her child is being failed, hell, even in her own damn home. The label exists to make her unbelievable, to ensure that whatever she names, whatever she witnesses, whatever she tries to build or protect, her credibility is compromised. And before she even finishes her sentence, usually. Because a black woman's anger is labeled as pathological, it can be ignored. Her testimony can be dismissed, her leadership undermined, her resistance can be called a personality disorder. And then the US media moguls did something even more damaging. They made anger synonymous with ugly, undesirable, unfeminine, unmarriageable. Think about Aunt Esther in Sanford and Son. Think about Pam in Martin. Both black women, both written as perpetually enraged or angry, both criticized and insulted by a black man. That's important in this strategy, and made the butt of the joke, made unlikable, held up as somebody you did not want to be, and only capable of getting a non-man like Aunt Esther's husband Woody, the neighborhood drunk. And so any black woman who recognized herself in their anger and their rage would kind of recoil from that. That equation, angry brown skinned black woman equals ugly, equals masculine, equals alone. That's not accidental. It was the architecture, the rage that's shameful enough that she will police herself. She will swallow it before it even reaches her throat, or others will silence her in real time. That stereotype was never describing our behavior, it was suppressing our testimony and our voices. And it was designed to work in every room that we entered. Let me show you what Black women are actually navigating, what we're actually living. And you tell me if the appropriate response is to be calm and appreciative. Let's start with school. So, September 2024, the U.S. Government Accountability Office released a report that examines discipline disparities among girls in public schools. They found that Black girls make up only 15% of girls in public schools, but account for 45% of out of school suspensions, 37% of in school suspensions, and 43% of expulsions. That is 3 to 5 times higher than white girls for infractions labeled as, and I need you to hear these words in particular: defiance, disrespect, disruption. Also, note 2024 was before, all hell broke loose before January 2025. I'm just saying. Now, Kimberly Crenshaw's Black Girls Matter report, published by the African American Policy Forum, documented how Black girls are simultaneously pushed out and over policed by school systems that never wanted us there in the first place. Thank you, Ruby Bridges. And here's the piece that pisses me off every time I read it. Researchers at Georgetown Law published a study in 2017 called Girlhood Interrupted, and it found that Black girls are perceived as needing less protection, less nurturing than white girls, beginning as early as 5 years old. They are seen as more adult, less innocent, and in need of less care. At 5 years old, she's already being adultified, already being prepared to have her emotional responses labeled as discipline problems rather than the responses of a child who is learning to be and exist in the world. This is where they start dismantling our selfhood, just as we are beginning that process of socialization and the beginning of our academic lives. At age 5, that's kindergarten, they are already starting to dismantle us. Take a deep breath. Let's go further. In the workplace, the Lean In McKinsey Women in the Workplace 2024 report found that 61% of Black women say their race played a role in missing out on career opportunities, up from 45% in 2018. It's getting worse. Black women consistently report more microaggressions, more challenges to our competence, less sponsorship than any other group in corporate environments. The Institute for Women's Policy Research documented that Black women carry unpaid diversity labor, guiding DEI efforts, mentoring, raising issues no one else will raise, and all of that goes unrecognized and uncompensated. I can attest to this wholeheartedly. Peeped my LinkedIn. I have worked for some of the largest global companies on the planet and have experienced all of that. Black women are out here doing the most, being compensated the least, and being labeled aggressive when we call it out. Ooh, child, let me take a breath. All right, let's go forward. The legal system. The Sentencing Project's 2025 data shows that Black women are imprisoned nearly twice the rate of white women. The National Black Women's Justice Institute documents that African American girls make up 14% of the general youth population, but 33% of girls detained and committed in the juvenile justice system. That pipeline runs directly through the preschool suspensions that I named earlier. Child, take a sip of water and keep breathing. Because now I want to name an area where there may be slightly thinner data, but the lived experience is real. While schools, workplaces, and courts produce measurable disparities, many Black women describe a dynamic that runs in parallel that's inside of our intimate relationships, particularly with Black men. And don't come for me with this, but realize what's real. When we as Black women are expected to be the soft place and also the strong one and the one who holds the community's pain without adding it to her own. But when her righteous rage rises in that intimate context, when she names what's being done to her, what her boundaries are, what she actually needs in reciprocity, she's labeled as too much, too aggressive, too masculine. Angry equals ugly. Angry equals the reason he left and the reason she can't keep a man, or any of the myriad of things that gets placed and blamed on a woman who was simply trying to survive. Black women have policed their own emotions, our own emotions, in intimate relationships to avoid being labeled as difficult or unattractive or unlovable. That ain't personal failure. That is a system doing exactly as it was designed to do and using our own people to do it. Girl, whoo, take a breath with me. You want to take an inhale and exhale. And keep breathing, honey. If this is stirring something somewhere in you and your body like it is mine, this was the most difficult part to get through. Go deeper with my free email course, Love Letters from the Ancestral Mothers. It's guided remembering, short audio teachings, healing reflections, ancestral wisdom, journal prompts, nervous system practices. You get one letter every 2 days. The link is in the description. Come sit with us. Child, do you know what happens when we swallow rage? Because it doesn't disappear, it metabolizes, and the body holds all of it. Dr. Cheryl Woods Giscombe, who is a scientist and researcher, she got a lot of receipts behind her name. She published a 2010 study on what she named the Superwoman Schema, which is a pattern of emotional suppression, strength projection, and self sacrifice that Black women are socialized into from childhood. Her research documents that we have these direct links between that schema and depression, anxiety, and barriers to seeking care. Researchers have come after her and found that this relentless pursuit of that persona predisposes Black women to PTSD, eating disorder, and substance abuse. So we've been giving this ideal that was never based in reality of who and how we're supposed to be, and our pursuit of that ideal is killing us. That's how I interpret that as a person who's lived it. And Black women are significantly less likely to seek mental health care than white women, not because we don't need it, but because we've been taught from preschool, from that television screen, from those relationships, that our need was too much and that needing at all was a vulnerability that we were not afforded, a humanity that we were not afforded. Public health researcher Dr. Arlene Geronimus has spent decades studying what she calls weathering, the cumulative biological impact of chronic exposure to racism and the stress on a Black woman's bodies. I wrote an essay on Medium about that. The link's in the description. But her research found that the chronic stress of navigating racism and suppressing its emotional toll and the natural emotional response that comes up to this type of injustice literally ages the body at a cellular level. So while black don't crack and we may not look like what we've been through, internally our cells and our organs are aging, are taking the hits. The American Heart Association documents that nearly 58% of Black women have hypertension, the highest prevalence amongst women of any racial or ethnic group. And chronic stress and emotional suppression are associated with systemic inflammation and dysregulation of the body's stress response, both of which impact many chronic health conditions as well as blood pressure. That dysregulation of the body's stress response includes the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands is what manages those hormones that gets released when you're under sudden or even chronic threat. In 2022, I had surgery to remove a kidney and an adrenal gland because I had a pheochromocytoma, which is a rare tumor in the adrenal gland that produced 10 times the amount of fight or flight hormones needed to deal with a life or death threat. I was walking around, and we don't even know for how long, but I was walking around always on edge chemically and ready. I'm gonna say not even to fight a lion or a tiger, but I was ready to fight aliens and dinosaurs. That's how my body was responding to this ongoing chronic stress and emotional suppression I was on. My body literally saved me by wrapping it up into a tumor that then sent out flares and alerts to get attention to it. I have a video here on YouTube where I talk about all my surgeries and the health impacts that I've had to navigate and what they taught me about nurturing myself, which is the first portal back to self in my framework. Dr. Jeremonis calls it weathering. I call it the body screaming when whispers were ignored so that I could play a role and be palatable to others. Breathe with me, child. The dope part is there's something you can do with your rage. Not manage it, definitely not suppress it, but actual movement of the energy because rage is energy. Emotions are energy, and energy that cannot move forward will move inward. The goal is not to suppress it or to extinguish it. The goal is to understand it, to move it through the body and transform it into clarity and fuel. Three ancestral practices, technologies that our people, Black people, have always known and researchers are now catching up to. First practice, meet it in ancestral community first. Before the rage moves anywhere, you need a container worthy of it. Not to calm it down, not to manage it, but to understand what it's carrying and whose shoulders it's standing on. I have a sacred resistance meditation already on this channel, on my YouTube channel, and it's part of my Ancestral Activation for Black Liberation series. And it takes you into a circle of light and calls in some of our collective warrior ancestors by name, ones who already knew what righteous rage was for. It moves you through love, then courage, and then action as a sequence, because that's the order. You cannot sustain action without love underneath it. And you need courage to take action and to allow yourself to love and to feel. The meditation is where you start, not to sit quietly with rage, but to bring it into the presence of ancestors who carried the same fire and let them remind you what it's for. Links in the description. Practice two, let the body do what it knows. Long before the transatlantic slave trade, and let me just set this for you. The transatlantic slave trade, the largest, longest human trafficking operation in recorded history, a crime against humanity that stole African people from our land, severed us from our families, extracted the labor from our bodies for centuries to build the economic wealth of nations that still benefit from that theft today, that transatlantic slave trade. Before all of that, West and Central African people carried sophisticated spiritual technology for understanding the relationship between the body, the mind, the emotions, and the divine. And we brought those technologies with us on the hulls of those ships. One of those traditions is the Yoruba spiritual system known as Ifa. It's also known as Candomblé, Santeria, Lukumi, and other names depending on where it landed. Within those traditions are Orisha, sacred energies that govern different aspects of nature and human experience. They are not distant gods, they live in the elements, in the body, in the community. There's an Orisha called Oya. I talked about her in my ATR breakdown of the film Is God Is, and I'll link that here and or up here somewhere and in the description. She is the Orisha of storms, lightning, wind, and transformation. She holds rage and grief together, and she doesn't suppress either one of them, she moves them. Oya's praise songs carry a little bit of a battle cry quality, a sound that comes from the gut, not from the throat. When people sing her songs, drum her rhythms, and dance her movements, they're not just displaying devotion, although they are giving devotion. They're processing, moving individual and collective grief and rage through the body and through the community so that it can be transformed into power and not stored as poison. If you've ever seen in a black church when the Holy Spirit moves through the room and then somebody breaks out into dance and the congregation begins to moan and sway, that sound that raises up from somewhere below the words, you've witnessed the same technology in a different container, the same ancestral intelligence, the body and our voices moving what the mind and society can't hold. That's the practice. Find Oya's praise songs on YouTube, and I'll link one of my favorite performances of an Oya song. It's beautiful to watch and to sing to. But find songs and listen. Let the sound move through you. Open your mouth and make sound. You don't have to be perfectly, you don't have to know Yoruba to sing it. It's not about performance. It's about letting your throat carry what your chest been holding. Let your body move. Shake if it wants to shake. Stomp if it wants to stomp. Do not confine your expression. And if Oya feels out of reach for you, find a praise song that moves you, that calls you to sing and stand and move and shout and jump. Move it through with devotion. Rage is sacred. Treat it as such. Practice three, speak to be witnessed. Our ancestors did this. Black women have been doing this forever. And this practice is what Beautiful, Powerful Love was built for. Telling your story out loud to another person. Dr. Joanne Banks Wallace, a Black nurse scholar who also describes herself as a griot, has spent her career documenting the cultural healing and empowering functions of storytelling amongst African American women. Her work shows that storytelling is more than self expression. It's a way of preserving your identity, of creating meaning, of challenging dominant narratives, and asserting agency over your own life story. So while they got Sapphire out there, they got Jezebel out there, they got Mary out there, and a bunch of other stereotypes, it's important that we reclaim our identity and tell our own stories because we got white men in blackface telling stories for us. Psychologist and ordained minister Dr. Thelma Bryant Davis, whose research focuses on trauma and healing in communities of African descent, has shown that racism and gendered oppression produce silencing, isolation, and invisibility. And that speaking your truth in a supportive community where your experience can be acknowledged, witnessed, and validated is in and of itself a component of healing. These scholars, these Black women scholars, confirmed in academic language what the griot tradition, what our ancestors always knew. The spoken word, witnessed by community, is medicine. This is why Beautiful, Powerful Love is a storytelling movement, because the story you tell about yourself can either liberate you or keep you shackled with little effort from the oppressors. Take a deep breath. If you want to go deeper, Remember Who the Fuck You Are, my activity book, and my memoir, From Fat, Black, and Unlovable to Beautiful, Powerful Love, are tools for self guided work. The memoir goes deep into how the stereotypes and the plantation proverbs lived in my own body and what it cost me. The activity book helps you dismantle what you've been internalizing by exploring the seven portals of wisdom our ancestral mothers left for us. Both links are below in the description and at shop.beautifulpowerfullove.com. And if you're ready for your story to be witnessed directly, that's what my one on one sessions are for. The link's in the bio as well. So the question for you is, what will you build with your righteous rage? And I mean that as a real question, not rhetorical. Let me know in the comments. Your rage is pointing at something specific, a specific injustice, a community that needs organizing, a young Black girl who needs to see a woman that didn't shrink, a story that needs to be told. What is your rage pointing towards? A system that needs to be named out loud and dismantled. What is your rage pointing towards? What will you build with your righteous rage? Follow the point of the rage and ask, what does this anger know that I haven't allowed myself to see or feel, that I haven't acted on yet? What is it protecting? What is it trying to build? The women who have changed history, who have taken steps to liberate us, which we must now continue, asked those questions and they moved. They moved in love and with courage. They took action. What will you build with your righteous rage? When Black women continue to suppress legitimate righteous rage, to swallow it, to redirect it inward, to perform calm and demure for rooms that will not change, two things happen. First, it goes into the body. It wreaks havoc, and though we don't look like it, it takes years off of our lives. Again, y'all know I can testify to that. Two, the liberatory movements that need our rage lose their fuel for change because Black women's organized anger has historically been the force that moved the needle every single time. When it has successfully been neutralized by a stereotype, the communities that depended on that rage, that depended on that leadership, pay the price. The suppression of your rage is not personal, it's not just about you. Your rage is critical to the maturation of humanity. Let me say that in a different way. This world, humanity, people needs Black women's rage. They need us to grow the fuck up. As Black mothers, as the ancestral mothers, as the divine feminine does, humanity got to grow up, and our rage is part of the fuel to ensure that that happens. And those who created the system know that. That's why they come for us. And that's why the Sapphire stereotype has never gone away. It just morphs into more modern forms. The angry Black woman. So when you're ready, Love Letters from the Ancestral Mothers, that's free in the link below. The memoir and activity book for self-guided excavation, as well as the resources, videos, and meditations on this channel, there for you. And or come work with me directly in a one-on-one session if that's what's needed, if you need that witnessing. All the links are in the description, all the information is there. But I want to thank you for being in this space with me, for witnessing me. And I'm going to leave you with one question. What would you do with your rage if you stopped apologizing for having it? Me, I write books, I study our ancestors, I use my voice to speak truth to power, and I mentor others. Drop your answers in the comment. You ain't got to try to meet mine for one to one, but who are you and how do you work through your rage? I have to write through my rage. I have to move my body through my rage. I have to share and use my voice in order to use my rage. What do you do? How do you manage yours? How do you leverage yours? If this video found you at the right time, share it with another Black woman who's been called angry and needs to know the real reason why. She needs to know that her rage is valid and sacred. And then subscribe, ring the bell, and next Friday we're going someplace even deeper. I'll see you there, and y'all know, as always, take good care of you.